Greetings and welcome to you, Fancy Feathers. I am Shushana, and today we're going to do a reading for our alcoholics in recovery. It's been quite the time since I did a reading for alcoholics in recovery, and I hope that you have made it and survived through the solar and lunar eclipse roller coasters. Today we're going to do a 4 direction spread. What needs to be meditated on, what needs renewal, what needs clarity, and what needs growth. The growth is the south position, the meditation is the west position. What needs to be renewed is the north position, and the east is what needs clarity and represents the east position. I've been doing the fire pit spread, and I feel that we need more cards. Okay, so alcoholics in recovery. How are you doing? There are fast changes. You'll be leaving a job suddenly or getting one very quickly, or your work may change dramatically in a short time. Go with the flow. So I wanted to do a quick check-in on how everybody is doing. Are you able to stay sober? Are you able to block toxic people? Are you able to break repetitive patterns? Are you able to resist temptation? Are you able to overcome triggers? Are you able to overcome spontaneous attacks? Have you been able to reduce the toxicity levels in your life, in negative loops, in social dynamics, in romantic dynamics? All these questions. Spiritual work, doing some inner work can help you get clear before you move on. You will get insight into what work will best serve your needs. So as you work on yourself, as you work on energy work, as you work on inner work, it helps gain clear insight to what your next move is, because these changes are rearranging everyone to different positions. So let's go ahead and begin with what needs to be meditated on. Let's go ahead and begin with the west direction. I'm using medicine cards. And drinking my cocoa. Simplicity, appreciating and enjoying life's simplicity. For alcoholics in recovery, what needs to be meditated on? Do you have to be completely sober for this to be accurate? Absolutely not. This is for anybody that feels connected to the title. It may have nothing to do with you. This could have something to do with simply being a survivor of an alcoholic or dysfunctional background family. So I came from a dysfunctional background. My father was a severe alcoholic. And there was a lot of dysfunction. So that's why I got into spiritual counseling, because I want to use my experiences for something good. You know, if I had to suffer, I might as well use that for stories so that nobody else has to repeat that kind of torment if it's preventable, right? So I followed my father's footsteps as an alcoholic for most of my adolescent years. And being an alcoholic and working with trauma, having come from a dysfunctional background and being an alcoholic combined is huge to overcome. So anybody who even attempts to overcome such an addiction with such a background, honor yourself. Honor yourself for being a generational curse breaker. And a lot of times, you're the first in generations to even attempt it. So I don't judge by how many times an individual spills the milk. It's how you clean up the milk that matters. We have the old man sorcerer. What needs to be meditated on is the resolution. What is the resolution to the problem that you're having? That is what needs to be meditated on, nothing else. You know, we tend to waste a lot of time on distractions. Instead of meditating on what needs to be resolved, I'm going to scroll. Instead of meditating on what needs to be or how it needs to be resolved, I'm going to wait and resolve it last minute. You know, all these last minutes. And it's important to confront the situation and not escape it. How is the situation going to be resolved? Getting on the drawing board, playing chess with yourself. There will be a resolution, but it requires action. Not wasting time on using that energy for other things. Right now, for this collective, you are being asked to confront the resolution and all of its layers. A lot of truths have been uncovered where you have realized people's real intentions, people who wish you harm, people who want to see you fall, see you fail, see you relapse, see you drunk. A lot of your friends, you are realizing, were only your friends because they liked the old version of you. You have outgrew a lot of people, even family members, some for years. You have outgrown so many people because you are choosing a positive path and everybody else is wanting to stay on another toxic path that you no longer want to be in. And meditating on that makes you confront those boundaries and realize, you know what? I'm looking at my notes, and every time there is a spiritual attack, a relapse, a trigger, it's associated to individual B, C, D, E, F, G. I need to stop talking to so and so. I need to block so and so. I need to delete so and so from my contacts. Let's move on to what needs to be renewed in the north direction. What needs to be renewed are a characteristic that you are hiding of yourself. So let's say you approach the world wearing blue, but you don't like the color blue, but you think the world sees you good in blue, so you go out wearing blue, but your real favorite color is pink. Why are you going out in the world dressed in blue when your favorite color is pink? This has to do also with characteristics and personality traits. Let me see if I'm missing anything for that particular card. Duality, okay. The duality of all things, allowing the negative shadow, the negative aspects to have a voice and be acknowledged. So sometimes there will be negativity that doesn't leave. The negativity that doesn't leave, maybe it's not leaving because it wants to be acknowledged, maybe because you haven't read the message or read in between the lines. Maybe there is a darkness or negativity that you are refusing to shed light to. For example, let's say it's anger. Let's say you think you're perfect and you have nothing to upgrade, right? But secretly you're angry and you love to be angry. There's some people who wish they weren't angry, and there's some people that love their anger. I personally like to transmute anger. I see the anger, I see the attempt to bring my vibration low, and I recycle it and I use that energy and I turn it to productivity. And then I sit back and relax and I'm like, wow, I got all that done. I got all that cleaning done, all those errands done because I took the attack and I transmuted it into proactive productivity. I feel like I'm missing something. Giving equal time and weight to both the dark and the light, balancing your perception. So basically, seeing the positive and the negative in a situation. Instead of only acknowledging the good news, acknowledging all the negative, acknowledge all the negative things that you've learned and dealing with them. Renewing the things that are trying to show you something, renewing their visibility, because a lot of times we will get messages, negative messages, and we don't want to listen to them. So those negative messages never go away because they're not being held with equal weight and value, meaning our negative emotions are just as important as our positive emotions to be dealt with. You don't just deal with all the positive emotions, you deal with both, the duality of both emotions in their intensity of both negative and positive, polar opposites, right? So I feel like this collective forgets aspects that need to stay. It's really interesting. It's like there will be a positive characteristic or a positive personality trait, and then you will forget it. Or not give attention to your shadow self. And then wonder why the shadow self never goes away. And sometimes it's because you tried to sedate it. So let's say someone triggers you. Let's say someone pisses you off. You're listening to jazz, having an amazing time, and somebody triggers you. And you didn't see it coming because maybe they're a roommate or a cousin or an uncle. And you didn't see it coming. And you're triggered. And then you're off to the store. You're off and you're looking for harder prescriptions instead of dealing with the matter, dealing with the manner in which you respond and react. And once again, what happens? What happens right before a relapse? Ego. Again, there's these stages, right? The disappointment, the pain rising. And there's these little 6 seconds that go by so fast where you have an opportunity to prevent the amygdala from being hijacked by entities. And usually those 6 seconds, you have to choose between ego and taking a deep breath. And a lot of times, ego will be chosen, and that leads to the relapse because ego was chosen during those 6 seconds. So as you choose ego, you choose allowing the amygdala to be hijacked by entities. So when someone relapses and you think, oh, the entities are going to hurt me only if I drink 200 beers. I should be safe. No, the entities already attacked you before you started drinking. The possession happened before the relapse. It's what you do when you're being possessed. Do you allow the possession to stay in ego? Or do you push them out by breathing and saying, no, I'm not going to be egotistical about the situation? So ultimately, in the world of alcoholics in recovery, the enemy is actually the ego because the ego blocks the inner child, the ego blocks the spirit and the soul. There's no voice, there's no acknowledgement of what the inner child needs from you, which is to hold yourself together. And ego is the one that puts the needle on the balloon and says, I give up because my ego was hurt. I surrender to being hijacked. And that's when the relapse occurs, right? So dealing with those triggers before you become triggered, because they're already hiding in the shadows. You already know what they are. We just have been desensitized so well that we train ourselves to dismiss what we know is good for us. So you train yourself to let ego win. And how far has that ever got the alcoholic? When you let ego win, it usually leads to death or near death experiences where you almost died because you drank so much. Okay, moving along. That one. is not my favorite. I tell you, this one is my least favorite card in the entire deck because duality is difficult. For Geminis, it's really easy. Geminis have the ability to just balance duality like nothing, but dualism is very difficult. It's easier said than done, kind of thing, you know? It's going through the shadows and dealing with those difficult emotions. Like, just thinking about it makes me want to cry because the real reason why everybody scrolls, the real reason why everybody goes on social media, the real reason why people self addict themselves to video games or pornography or drugs or whatever substances people use, it's escapism, is to escape the dualism in your life, to escape the shadows and say those shadows are not there. But all that escaping is not going to deal with the shadows. And sometimes when we just use a crystal to take that sunlight and direct it towards that dark shadow and shed light to those uncomfortable emotions, we realize how beautiful those emotions we were hiding actually are and how much they actually deserve acknowledgement. I just don't like interpreting that card because it just it touches so many sensitive triggers, but it makes sense to be seen in a spread for people in recovery because it is those sensitive triggers that we need to work on. What am I going to do next time somebody pokes the bear? What is your plan? Next time somebody pokes the bear, what are you going to do? Because you can't continue that repetitive cycle that a lot of people in recovery have when you go up and down. The next card is the East direction. What needs clarity? We have the East yellow and the fire pit. What needs clarity? The new beginning that you're planning on making. So a lot of you are unfulfilled or dissatisfied with the way that your life has gone pretty much your whole life. And especially as you started your road on sobriety or interest in sobriety, your life is changing and you're going in separate directions than where you were going. Than where you thought you were going. You're going somewhere better. And that better requires new beginnings on your part. And of course, clarity. So not only new beginnings, but clarity. And something needs to be resolved before that clarity comes. So it's frustrating for a lot of people because we're stuck resolving 3D matters that we're not able to deal with the complex layers that need to be dealt with. The light has risen. You can now begin to see your life with clarity. A new light, a new day dawns, and you arise with courage, ready to make a fresh start. This is an opportunity to transform your way of looking at things, to broaden your view and expand the scope of your awareness. Now is a time of inspiration. The prospect before you is clear and unobscured, understanding all that takes place around you. Journey onward past limitations. You honor the spirit of the East, opening yourself to the gifts of new beginnings, clarity, and illumination. And then we have the fire pit right next to it. So there's an excuse, right? There's an excuse that has been made in the past. I can't figure out those other layers until the 3D issues are dealt with. But those 3D issues are being pushed to the back burner by the universe because the universe is saying, you know what? Those 3D issues are irrelevant to the bigger aspect of things. So I'm going to make those 3D issues glitch and be delayed and be on default by the Matrix AI, and a lot of things are not going to go our way when it comes to legal documents and forms, QR codes, digital IDs, and all those things are just going to kind of malfunction in their own deformed frequency that they represent. So you're going to be forced to deal with those layers that you've been lying to yourself, saying you don't have the time to deal with. You're going to be put in privacy. So we might have been feeling isolated with no privacy whatsoever for the past couple of months. And that was a spiritual test to see how strong you are under pressure. Like a diamond cannot be created without high pressure. So we've been diamondized as people in recovery. And now this new phase, whatever you want to call it, that we're in is giving us privacy, right? So before we had isolation with no privacy. You know what I mean? Where it's like you're isolated, but you have no privacy. You know, roommates, family members. And then now there's going to be privacy to deal with the uncomfortable layers that the universe is not allowing to be suppressed any longer. Okay, so that clarity is just going to ooze in the form of spontaneous healing. All of a sudden, this clarity is just going to come pouring into your crown. That is your own energy, not external. Just this clarity is by simply you recognizing that it has been suppressed. And then we have the fire pit, which, where were we? Motivation. Okay, so regaining the motivation. The reason why a lot of you lost the motivation was because you had no privacy, or you had family drama or financial obstacles. And now you're being allowed to spend quiet time within the void that gives forth, propels my creativity, and inspires my actions. Okay? So if you feel like you lost your mojo, you lost your motivation, you got writer's block, it's because there were people on your hair. And now those people are being removed peacefully. And now you're going to have the time to regain your motivation. So, people in recovery, be ready to be remotivated, have clarity come back in. You're going to be like, why didn't I figure this out sooner? Don't do that. It's okay to not have figured something out sooner. And then we're missing one more direction. Where did it go? Where's my little notes? The south direction, right? We got 1, 2. These two wanted to represent the east, the clarity with motivation. How to make this impenetrable. You know, when you're feeling creative and motivated, it's easy for you to zap out people who want to energy vamp on you because you're like clarity and motivated, and you just zap electrical shock anybody that tries to bring you down to your old self, right? Because people who are in recovery are constantly dying and being reborn, shedding that old skin, those old identities that were all infiltrated by entities, and becoming a new person that is closer to your true self. Moving along to south direction, what needs growth for this group? Interesting. Meditation needs growth. The meditation itself needs growth. So, meditating on the resolution and meditating more. And I know that's not what a lot of you want to hear. A lot of you are like, meditate more. We already have to meditate on the resolution, and then we have to meditate more. Can I get a why? A why? For inner work, for spiritual work, to get clear before moving on, for getting the insights into what work will best serve your needs. That's what. And because of the fast changes that are coming, where certain jobs or certain hobbies or certain companies are no longer going to be owned by certain people, and you're going to be, some of you will be displaced and kind of forced into a different field. Okay, anything additional for meditating on the resolution? Meditating on the resolution. Some of you, that resolution is romantic. Meditating on how to resolve your romantic issues. If you are in a romantic relationship with somebody that makes you relapse or gives you desires to relapse, then that is the toxicity that we're needing to wean off, right? We're needing to cut away those things that make you want to relapse. And if those things can't be cut, like let's say it's a family member, let's say you're taking care of your grandmother, and your grandmother is the one who's always making you want to relapse, but when she's not there, you want to be sober all the time. Those kinds of situations, you have to practice your reaction mechanism and your response. You have to practice, what am I going to do next time that my grandmother does A, B, and C? How am I going to respond? You have to have a game plan, like football. You know, in football, they have all their little tactics, and you need to have that little tactic for next time. What are you going to do when you get triggered? And it may not even be coming from the person that you expected. It's always like that. Okay, I am prepared. I have A, B, and C plans to get triggered by that person. And all of a sudden, you get triggered by somebody else and something else you weren't prepared for. You need to have a game plan for all of your blind spots. But for the majority of you, meditating on what the resolution is to how to bring more harmony into your romantic commitment, for the renewing of the duality, allowing the negative emotions to be felt. And expressed. So, expressing your duality, expressing your true wardrobe. So, there's some people here that dress in the complete opposite manner that you wish that you could. And I'm not talking about financial restrictions, putting the financial restrictions, financial excuses to the side. There are a lot of you in here that have this vision of how you want to dress. Like some of you, you want to wear capes or crowns, or a man who has a desire to wear earrings, a man who has a desire to wear dangly earrings. In our indigenous church, by the way, we have men that wear earrings on both ears that dangle and make noise when they walk by, just to let you know. And a long time ago, the clothes that everybody wore was gender fluid. They were like these robes or dresses or covers where everybody kind of wore similar clothes. There's definitely a lot of you in here that wish that you can wear something that you think society wouldn't accept. If for some reason you can't get yourself to dress the way that you want to dress in public, practice at home. There are a lot of cultures where the man wears a skirt, for example. I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but this is seriously what I, get. Um, like Samoans, New Zealand, indigenous people, Scottish people. There's a lot of cultures where the ancient wardrobe or the ancient choice of clothing, even like the Romans, wore a skirt. And I'm not saying to do that. I'm just saying, like, if you have a desire to buy a robe, a desire to cover every part of your body, a desire to cover your head, a desire to wear dangly silver earrings with stones, a desire to wear a crown with jewels, do it at home. If you don't feel like doing it out in public, fine. Maybe one day you will when you feel more empowered and confident. But that's why a lot of people like to move to LA or San Francisco or New York, because those places, or Tokyo, those places are known for people just wearing whatever they want to wear. And it's just what people do, is just designing your own style. But I just feel like a lot of people here wish that they can completely change their entire wardrobe, where they can just burn everything they have or throw everything away, especially if it's polyester, and you just want to buy like a set of linen, a set of Egyptian cotton, a set of silk, and even design your own clothing, like getting a sewing machine and sewing your own clothes. Like, can you imagine where our clothes comes from? A child could have sewn our clothes for all we know and used low quality fabric. And imagine how good it must feel to wear your own garment, to choose where your own linen came from, where your cottons come from, where your silks come, to choose exactly where they were handcrafted and making your own clothing and covering your sacred body with it. And that goes hand in hand with the duality in what's wrong with wearing masculine clothes one day and feminine the other day. You know, sometimes there's a difference. There's a difference between embracing both divine masculine and feminine aspects, and there's a difference between biological W. You know, it's like with biological W, they are intentionally messing with the gender's hormones so that they are imbalanced, taking control of your own hormones by buying your own clothes and knowing where the clothes comes from, because polyester changes your hormones if you don't already know. Polyester is what everybody can afford, right? So everybody's wearing polyester because polyester lowers your vibration to that of a dead corpse. You know, copper used to be what the counter was made of in emergency hospitals. Emergency hospitals, a long time ago, the counters were made of copper, and all the tools that they used were made of copper. And there's a flour that was prescribed to everybody that healed everybody. So the Rockefellers came and said, you know what? This copper is healing everybody. That flour is healing everybody. Let's take it off, because there's no profit in healing people. So the pharmaceutical industry was born, and they're basically legal drug dealers that keep people sick, and why I only support TCM, traditional Chinese medicine. Okay, so express yourself how you want to express yourself. The beauty of moving to another country or another city is starting all over. A new name, a new wardrobe, a new way to pronounce your name, etc. And then the East, where when we gain the clarity and motivation and new beginnings. Is that it? Okay, so the motivation, this is the motivation. The clarity and the motivation is going to be the key to progress. Because sometimes people here in recovery are like, why am I doing this? You're doing it to progress and become a better person and obtain things that you feel that you can't obtain right now. You're doing this to one day obtain your dream house, your dream farm, your dream off-grid farm. And your motivation and your clarity is what's going to get you there. Which, should we talk about relapsing if that were to happen? Like, let's say you get triggered between now and the next 3 weeks with this kind of spread, right? You would forfeit your clarity, you would forfeit your motivation. The motivation would become guilt and shame, and the clarity would become a cloud. And you would start all over to vibration -0, 0. And the lies come in, right? The lies will tell you, oh, you'll feel better, you'll feel better. Let's say you feel like ending everything, right? So you figure that relapsing is going to make you feel better, right? It's going to make you go up a little bit. When you weren't so down after all. Let's say you feel down here. You're feeling down here. It's not, whenever you're feeling down or your neutral feels extra heavy, don't discredit the neutral low, because there's neutral high, there's neutral, there's neutral low. It's very common for people in recovery to feel neutral low. And when they're neutral low, it's often because they were disappointed, their ego was hit, they were triggered by the usual that triggers them, and they get scared. They're like, wait a minute, I'm at a neutral low. Why am I at a neutral low when I've been sober for years? Why am I feeling neutral low? And you start freaking out by this false sense of failure. So you're freaking out because you're neutral low here. And then the lies are over here telling you, hey, if you relapse, you're going to feel like this. Don't you want to go up here and feel a little better? So you're neutral low and you're getting tempted to go up. But you're only feeling this low and you're not giving yourself gratitude. Be grateful for the days that you feel low, because you could feel so much more lower. Like, okay, I'm feeling a little depressed. Good. Be grateful that you're not feeling suicidal. Be grateful that you're not feeling worse than you are. And it confuses your mind and makes your mind think that you're fine even though you're not. So you're telling your mind, be grateful because you could feel worse even though you're neutral low, right? If you relapse, yes, you're going to feel better, but guess what? It's going to go down even lower than where you started, and then you're back at -0, back to the loop of guilt and shame where you have to give up your REM sleep. For those of you who are constantly tempted by either good news or bad news, triggers or friends. Temptations are there all the time. Remind yourself. Sleep is golden. Take notes. Write little notes. I write post-its on the walls all over the place. Take notes. When you're having an ego battle, sometimes there's no time to check your drafts on your email. Sometimes there's no time to pick up your phone and see what you wrote for your future self if it were to get triggered again. Sometimes we're only human and there's no time for that. If there's no time to get your phone and read your salvation draft that you wrote to your future self, think REM. REM. You're having a panic attack, you're crashing out, someone's in your face, you want to go back to that substance, whatever it is, REM. Just say that to yourself. Go to the bathroom if you have to. Wash your hands and imagine the ego going down the drain as you wash your hands with only water. You feel the ego leave, and then this pain and pressure is going to be felt on the chest. And it's going to say, okay, you dropped your ego, but here's the pain, here's the pressure. It still wants to be relieved. And that's the final cry, the final voice of the devil himself trying to lure you into a relapse because it sees that you washed your hands and the ego went down the drain. When you hear those words, the pain, the pressure, needing relief, you cross them out and you say REM. That is going to trigger your memory and you're going to remember the sentence, my sleep is golden. And you imagine your toes curling on linen, soft, fresh, washed linen. Right after a shower, you oiled up your toes. And you get in that blanket and your toes curl because it's soft and comfy in your bed. And you program that vision with that sentence together. Toes curled is the visual that comes with my sleep is golden, crossing out pain, crossing out relieving, needing to relieve it because it's crossed out with REM, and the REM triggers the sentence, my sleep is golden. If you relapse to that substance, alcohol is the title, you will sacrifice your REM. And not only that, your vibration is going to go back down. And then you're going to be thinking the next day, I was at a neutral low. And I went up and then back down. And I'm feeling suicidal. I wasn't supposed to use that word. I just don't know what else to use instead of that word. And then you'll think back. What happened? You weren't grateful for feeling neutral low. You have to be grateful when you're feeling low because you could be feeling lower. Think back of all those times that you binged and how bad you felt is indescribable. It's like there's this addiction hormone that makes you forget the pain so that you'll do it again. Similarly to childbirth, when women give birth, they have a hormone that's dispersed that makes them forget the pain so that they will reproduce again and have another one and forget. I swear, I have a theory that addicts also have a similar hormone that makes them forget that hangover so that they'll do it again. And that's why you have to write it down and take notes. Even if it's simple as stars from 1 to 10, how bad was your pain? It was at a 10. Do you want your pain to be at a 10? Compare your pain with the pain that you're dealing with when you're sober and triggered. Okay, you're triggered, you're mad, but your pain is only at a 5. Do you want your pain to go from a 5 to a 10 just for a little relief? No. So your secret in progressing will be your clarity and motivation and sustaining that through sobriety. Last but not least, let's do the south direction for growth, which we also got the meditation card. Let me see if there's a word that I left out because I don't usually like just saying one word. What am I missing? We are flooded by influences, interactions, and stimuli each day. It's important to take periodic breaks from the fast pace of our lives and return our attention to the quiet place where the spirit rests. Let the sun set on the rest of your day and the turmoil of your life. Find the time and place to meditate. Meditate is a path towards yourself, a means of learning to listen to self guidance. This is your time to communicate with spirit and open your inner self. Okay, so ADHD is no bueno for people in recovery. ADHD is used by entities where you want to fiddle, right? You're supposed to be meditating and then your body just wants to fiddle and fidget. Those are ADHD entities. ADHD and autism did not exist. It only started to exist recently with needle procedures and needle mandates, and is connected. I mean, entities take advantage of anything that benefits them. ADHD benefits entities because they take full advantage. You have ADHD, you can't focus, you can't get college work done, you can't find a job, you can't sit there and meditate on a resolution. So be aware that the entities will try to attack you through ADHD. There are amazing frequencies on YouTube that help with ADHD focus and restless leg syndrome. Restless leg syndrome is a fungus overgrowth imbalance caused by candida, and ADHD and restless leg syndrome tend to correlate well together, and entities love feeding off that kind of energy. So if you have that issue, the frequencies that offer relief for ADHD and restless leg syndrome are pretty safe. But there's only like 3 videos out there for restless leg syndrome, and they're pretty safe for the most part. You know, do your own discernment. But how to get rid of that fungus overgrowth that causes restless leg syndrome and is not you going crazy, because sometimes you're like, you don't understand why it's happening. It's not enough fiber, too much bread, you know, too much processed foods, too much high fats. All that causes an imbalance in your gut. I suggest red radishes. You know how they say one apple a day keeps the doctor away? I disagree. There's too much sugar in apples. There's too much sugar in apples. Red radish, one red radish a day keeps the doctor away. Right before going to sleep, especially if you get sugar cravings at night. If you have sugar cravings, you're probably nutrient and mineral deficiency. You know, it's like we don't get sugar cravings for no reason. Either there is fungus, candida overgrowth imbalance, or you're just not getting enough of certain supplements, nutrients, or minerals. So your body wants to compensate with sugars. So, besides taking care of your fibers and nutrients, if you get sugar cravings before bed, instead of doing the whole candy before going to sleep, do one red radish before bed. I like to squeeze a lime on it and a little bit of salt, and it tastes amazing. And when you have that, you no longer desire candy anymore. After you eat a red radish before bed, you don't want the candy that you would usually want. And then you drink a little water. You can drink a little water to help alleviate that strong flavor that red radishes have. But I highly recommend red radish to deal with restless leg syndrome associated with candida. Okay, did we do one for this? Did we do? I guess not. Last card. All right, so meditating is going to be your secret to peace and self-guidance. All of the answers that you're looking for are going to be found inwardly, because the kind of wisdom that people in recovery have is very difficult to find answers anywhere else but within yourself. You know what I mean? It's like people who have never gone through much, they need answers externally because they've never been through anything. But if you come from a background where you've been through a lot of your answers are going to be in a very quiet place inside your own throne. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Till next time. Bye.